You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Athan Hristodulu.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Athan Hristodulu. It is Thursday, the start of Week 7, October 21st, 2021. We have quite the interesting game coming up tonight for this Thursday night's game. What has been dubbed like the Injury Bowl or something. It is an absolute mess of a game that we have going on. So many potential people out, so many people confirmed to be out. You just don't really know who's going to be starting. I've been watching the betting lines just kind of change back and forth and flip-flop since the announcement of Baker Mayfield's injury and keeping him out of the game after he was adamant all week that he was going to play. There is so much to dive into and talk about for this game. I have a few key points to the game that I'm going to go over with you guys. We'll obviously discuss the injuries and whatnot. I'll give you some bold predictions, and then I will pick my winner for the week. So, as always, if you enjoy what we're doing here, like, comment, join in on the discussion, share the podcast, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And if you're listening on one of the many podcasting platforms, don't forget to check us out here on YouTube. So, let's get into this game, shall we? This is quite a disaster of a game for Thursday Night Football. One that, just like even 3 weeks ago, could have potentially looked like a really good game has kind of fallen apart due to injuries. I mean, essentially both teams have just been ravaged by them going into this game. There is so much uncertainty going into the game. The big one being obviously Baker Mayfield has been confirmed out for the night. He will not be playing for the game. Realistically speaking, I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater is going to be able to play or not. I've been reading that, some reports saying that he may, some that he may not. It just depends on how he feels. It sounds like it's going to be a game time decision, which really will, I think, affect the sway of this game when that is announced, whether it is game time or maybe they announce it in the hours leading up to the game. I don't know. We may be getting Drew Lock. Who knows? But there's just so many questions. I mean, the positional depth in this is unbelievably important going into this game now because essentially whoever has the deepest roster is probably going to scrape their way out of this game. And I have all the injuries written down here. This is what I know of as of Wednesday night. For those of you that don't know, I record these Thursday game previews the night before just because of the schedule of my actual life. But just like going over the injury report for you guys, for the Broncos, confirmed out, we have linebacker Baron Browning, linebacker Alexander Johnson, and wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. The last I saw was noted to be like less than 50% probable to play, which does not sound very good, and it sounds like he's not going to. I have him like as a pseudo out guy. It doesn't sound like he's going to play just based off what I've read, but again, things may change in the next 24 hours as we head into the actual game from when I'm recording this and the next handful of hours for when you guys are seeing it. As for questionable people, Teddy Bridgewater's on the list, offensive tackle Garrett Bowles, and tight end Noah Fant. The Broncos injury report, not as devastating as the Browns when we jump into theirs. Baker Mayfield out, Nick Chubb out, Kareem Hunt out, and then on top of that, the questionable list is unbelievable. You have wide receiver Odell Beckham, tight end David Njoku, Jadeveon Clowney, right tackle Jack Conklin, left tackle Jedrick Willis, center J.C. Treader. That's literally 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. Then you have on the defensive side of the things, Jordan Elliott, their D tackle, Malik Jackson, their D tackle, and then linebackers Malcolm Smith and Mac Wilson as potentially out for the game as well. Again, those are questionable guys. Again, positional depth is going to be key to either team's success in winning this game. This is probably the biggest key to the game here, is just who has the deeper roster and the better players, essentially, who's your better second string guy. And if Teddy Bridgewater is not starting, who is the better backup quarterback? Is it Drew Lock? Is it Case Keenum? I don't really know. Case Keenum's been known as kind of like a journeyman kind of guy. He's played for a lot of teams. He's had some successful games here and there. I remember one point where teams were even kind of in like a semi-bidding war for him in free agency one year after having a pretty solid season. So, I mean, do you have the journeyman Case Keenum or big arm cannon Drew Lock, who just has like really hot games? And this would be the random game for him to be hot. I feel like every year he's due for one really good game. Maybe this is his one game game for this year. I don't know. But injuries, man, have just completely ravaged it, and I think it is going to be a focal point to this game, and ultimately a deciding factor is who comes into this game more healthy, who comes into this game as a healthier team per se, and who comes out of this game healthier, because if there's any more injuries during the game, if any of these backups go down, you're looking at God forbid, another running back for Cleveland goes down. They're literally missing their 1-2 punch combination in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, two star running backs, the leaders of this powerful running offense that they have there. And that kind of leads me into my second point, which was a awesome kind of looking matchup going into the game. We have the Browns running game versus the Broncos running defense. So this was something that I thought was interesting to know, and something that I was looking at kind of heading into this game before all these injuries were announced, is the mismatch, or not necessarily the mismatch, but what is a mismatch now because of what could have been. Initially, this was going to be the Browns' number one in rushing offense with 1,011 yards total in their six games, that they've played so far, going up against the Broncos' run defense, which is ranked fourth in rushing yards allowed at only 513 through 5 games. However, Kareem Hunt is gone, Nick Chubb is gone, the main focal point of that running game, and then you list 3 offensive linemen that are questionable. This goes from a first in rushing offense to you don't really know what you're getting out of this rushing attack, which in my opinion is kind of like the engine to this Browns offense, and that's not to discredit anything that Baker Mayfield has done. I think he's been playing great despite the injury he's dealing with. However, this running game, Nick Chubb, I think the offense kind of goes through the running game. Just with the way they are able to pound the rock, the 1-2 punch that they have created with Nick Chubb, that offensive line, and Kareem Hunt, just such an impressive group altogether when you look at it from left to right on the line to the running backs themselves. So here's an opportunity for a Broncos, which again, this turns into kind of a mismatch now, because you have the Broncos who they started out 3-0. They were handling teams with lesser units pretty well, and then they got into some more competitive games with some better teams, and now they've been struggling. So with that, you take what is the 4th-ranked run defense, and you're putting in potentially backup linemen. As Von Miller was saying, he's going to kill whoever he goes up against, and he doesn't even know who it is. I don't know who it's going to end up being. Good luck to whoever it is if Von Miller's feeling that way. And then on top of that, again, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt are gone. You don't have those star running backs in the backfield to hand the rock off to. I think that, Denver has struggled in these last few weeks, losing their last 3 games, falling from 3-0 to 3-3. This is a good opportunity for them to kind of, steer the ship in the right direction and kind of get back on track. You get to take advantage of what would normally be like a playoff contender at a very depleted state offensively, and you can take advantage of that. This is like them going up against those lesser teams per se, and I air quoted that for those of you that aren't actually watching and you're just listening. But this is a good opportunity for that run defense to take advantage of what would be a number 1 rushing attack should the entire team actually be healthy going into this game, but it's not. So, it kind of wipes that whole facet of the game for the Browns offense right off the board. Another key to the game, and this has to do with both teams more so, and I think is going to be a very big deciding factor in the game, is going to be the ability for either of these teams to be able to protect their quarterback. Both of these teams, and this was a pretty jarring statistic when I pulled this up, ranked in the top 5 of sacks allowed. Broncos are, I believe, what is that? I had actually labeled this wrong on my notes here, funny enough. I want to say that is 29th in sacks allowed with 19, while the Browns are tied at 28th in sacks allowed with 18. So Broncos have 19, Browns have 18 total so far through the season. They're in the top 5 for most sacks allowed offensively. Then when you flip things around and look at what these defenses have been able to do through the pass rush, this favors the Browns a little bit more, and this is kind of like an edge for the Browns that I think it kind of works in their favor. But if Jadeveon Clowney is missing, this might affect things as well, especially if they're missing both their D tackles as well. This is something that might favor the Browns if some of these questionable guys are playing, but if they're not, this might actually hurt them in a sense. Browns have 69 pressures. They're actually ranked 3rd in the league, so they have no trouble getting after the quarterback. Myles Garrett, I believe he's a sacks leader. Look at this, conveniently enough, it's scrolling from the bottom of the screen right now. Yes, Myles Garrett is leading the league in sacks with 8, and then They have 18 total sacks, which is also ranked third, 69 pressures, and then the Broncos have 57 pressures, which is actually only ranked 17th, and then they have 14 sacks, which is tied for 9th. So this right here favors the Browns. However, this could be something that favors the Broncos, because if the Browns pass rush is struggling due to, maybe missing Malik Jackson, and you're also missing potentially Jadeveon Clowney, say both those two guys aren't in the game come Thursday night football when it kicks off, something that could be on the Browns side might end up flipping and being on the Broncos side. And it really just boils down to, the Broncos have potential for injuries. The Browns have a much wider margin in that area. These are two key points that, could swing in either team's favor that I think will ultimately decide the game. It's going to boil down to injuries again, mainly, and then also just, again, positional depth and who is the more effective, second and third stringers that have to come in, rotational players to replace these starters that potentially may be out for this game. Overall, my final thoughts going into this game, and just like before we get into predictions and everything, is this is probably the most difficult Thursday night game I've had to predict so far, just based off everything I've looked into, going into betting odds, because, the people handling all that kind of stuff seem to have a pretty good, finger on the pulse of what's going on in the league. But I have my opinions, and, they are what they are, but there's so much unpredictability in this game, and I don't think anyone's going into this game with an absolute certain thought that, whether you're a Broncos fan or a Browns fan or somebody just on the outside looking in, can say that definitively this team or this team is going to come out a game winner, because there's so many unknowns leading into this that we don't necessarily know. And back to a point that I've made a few times, this game really boils down to positional depth. I think at most it's just who has the more effective second and third stringers in those positions that potentially may be missing their starters. As for the actual predictions and everything for the game itself, I do have a few bold predictions to throw out there for the game. The first one being for the Broncos. I have a pair of them. I believe that the Broncos offense is going to have to lean on their run game, and they're going to be able to pull in at least a couple of rushing touchdowns, whether that's from Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. I don't know who they have planning on, how the rotation's going to work out. Whoever they lean on, I believe one of those guys is probably going to score a touchdown or two, or maybe split between the two, but I think they're going to have to lean on their run game a little bit more, especially if Teddy Bridgewater ends up missing the game. Secondly, I believe their run defense is going to dominate, and this is more off the assumption that a lot of these guys are going to be out. Again, I'm predicting this a day before the game is actually going to be going on, so it kind of shoots my prediction in the foot, but this is the risk I've been taking week in and week out. I am 6-0 on my Thursday night predictions. I have a feeling that streak is going to be snapped after this prediction, but I'm going to make it anyways. But again, I think that the run defense of the Broncos is going to dominate the Browns' backups, whether it's their offensive linemen and their backup running backs, and hold them to about 75 yards or less. And then on the Browns side of things, offensively, Case Keenum missing your running backs. If any number of these linemen is going to hurt this team. I didn't really have any bold predictions for the offense, because I really just do not know what they are going to have on the field. Odell Beckham might not even be playing. So to be honest with you guys, I really just don't know. But for the defense, I still think they will be able to take advantage of the lackluster pass protection that the Broncos have had and pull in about 3 sacks through the game. So I do have that pegged for the Browns defense. As for the final predictions, score-wise, who's going to win, who's going to lose, I'll pull it up on the screen here for you guys now so you can see. I have the Broncos winning the game 24-14. And for those gamblers out there, again, this is not gambling advice. This is just what I think. I'm going with the under on the score prediction there. The score of 24-14 puts it at 38 total. The last time I looked, the point total was at about 41, depending on where you look, give or take. But I do think the under is probably more likely, given just the amount of potential missing pieces on both sides of the football here, and also just we already have a guarantee Mayfield's out and 2 running backs over there. If Bridgewater's out, I mean, this could be a very defensively run football game, to say the least. But those are my predictions. That is what I think is going on for this week's Thursday night football game. I would love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If I sound a little run down, again, I am sorry. I'm still dealing with the sickness, fighting through trying to push out these videos for you guys anyways. But that is all I got for you all. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your Thursday night football, and I will catch you guys depending on how I feel, Friday for a video, and if not, 100% on Sunday, we'll go through game by game and make our predictions there. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. Have fun watching some football, everyone.